Good day, everyone. Welcome to GE6 Art Appreciation class. Last meeting, we were able to discuss the different concepts and artworks under the topic subject and content. For this week, we are going to proceed on our next topic, which is artists and artisans. But before we begin, let us familiarize ourselves with the different learning outcomes for this lesson. Okay, so at the end of this lesson, you should be able to first outline the history of the emergence of artists and artisans. Second, identify and define the different individuals and groups who take on varied roles in the world of art and culture. And lastly, that is number 3, I'm sorry, typo. Classify the practices of artists in terms of form, medium, and technique. So, in the rise of technology, it is remarkable what has now made possible. With just one click, we can have all the information that we want, right? It's easier for us to fix things that before seems impossible to be done. And in the fast-paced and highly complex 21st century, there is a real and nagging fear that soon everything may very well be replaced by computers and robots, just like in movies, that can arguably do things with more precision at a shorter amount of time, and most importantly, less capital in the long term. Mas tipid siya. Like for example, professions like us, teachers, no, customer service representatives, sales representatives, technician, farmers that can be replaced by modern and upgraded machines, or yun nga, robots to be specific. Okay? However, this nihilist notion is contested. When we say contested, challenged by what are arguably the most resilient qualities of man, which is our creativity and imagination. By the way, when we say resiliency, it is our ability to bounce back, kumbaga, or adapt after experiencing a challenging situation. Meaning, as long as there is a cultivation of both of these qualities, creativity and imagination, no robot or artificial intelligence can replace man just yet. Okay, so this lesson will introduce the artists who have dedicated their lives to the cultivation of the arts through the works of creativity, imagination, and daring throughout the history. It aims to expand this into the wider world of arts and culture, wherein other key players and movers are testament to how the production, consumption, and distribution of arts have changed profoundly. Now, let us start our discussion by defining artist and artisan, and let us see what is the difference between these two terms. Okay. So what is an artist? So when we say artist, it is a person who performs all forms of creative arts. The specialty of an artist is that he is able to create for the sake of art itself without needing any ulterior motives, and it is believed that through art, the artist can create a change in the society. So basically, artists are those who dedicate only to the creative side. Okay? People who create art that are visually pleasing. They work only for the enjoyment and appreciation, no functional value. Again, artists create art for the sake of art itself without needing ulterior motives like earning money, or to be famous, or to be recognized, or things like that. Okay? Some artists create their work of art for the satisfaction of society or their audiences in which they live in. And here are some of the known artists and their famous artworks. Some of these artists were mentioned in our previous lesson and also mentioned by some of the presenters during the last synchronous lesson. Okay, so first on the list is Vincent Van Gogh. Vincent Van Gogh was born on March 30, 1853, in Zundert, Italy. Vincent van Gogh once said, "I dream of painting and then I paint my dream." Vincent's parents were not very happy with his dream of being an artist, but it did not stop Vincent from working hard and improving his skills. He lived in various places in Netherlands, and in The Hague, he took painting and drawing lessons with his uncle, the artist Anton Mauve. Vincent van Gogh is remembered for both striking color, emphatic brushwork, and contoured forms of his art, and for the turmoil of his personal life. Some fascinating facts about Vincent van Gogh, but actually I will not call it or describe it as fascinating kasi some of this are sort of sad stuff about Vincent. So, do you still remember what we have mentioned in our previous discussion wherein sabi natin there is not enough opportunity and appreciation sa mga artist natin at minsan nare-recognize yung work nila or mismong sila kapag wala na or patay na sila. Si Vincent van Gogh, despite being famous and recognized in today's generation, he was no exemption sa notion na ito. Did you know that he died at the age of 37 years old? Sobrang bata, sobrang aga niya nawala. Maybe because of his unhealthy lifestyle. Even though he belonged to a family with impressive background or medyo nakakaangat, he lived his life in poverty because nga he chose to live home. Umalis siya sa kanila kasi kontra nga yung pamilya niya sa pagpursue niya ng dream niya as an artist, and he focused all his energy in doing art, drawing and painting to be exact. And out of 900 paintings na nagawa niya for 10 years, he only sold one painting. And sadly, Van Gogh did not live long enough to see the extent of his legacy, which includes his works now being some of the most expensive in the world. Another fact about Vincent, he lived with mental illness throughout his life. Though hindi natin alam kung ano yung exact diagnosis ng kanyang condition kasi that time wala pa naman established basis ng diagnosis for psychiatric conditions or mental conditions or illnesses. But many modern day psychiatrists have attempted to diagnose his illness from symptoms he showed, and possible diagnosis daw include schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, syphilis, hypergraphia, Zec-Wind syndrome, and temporal lobe epilepsy. Ang daming diagnosis. And it is also quite possible daw that he had a combination of this, itong mga nabanggit nating conditions. But whatever his diagnosis, it was likely made worse by his lifestyle, which, to put it nicely, was not exactly healthy. Okay? So, moving on sa ating next artist, si Leonardo da Vinci. Okay? So, si Leonardo da Vinci naman was born on April 15, 1452, also from Italy. So, he was a painter. He is an architect also, a sculptor, inventor. He also joined the military, engineer, and draftsman. Leonardo da Vinci once said, "He who thinks little earns much." Okay, so we may think that we've heard all the interesting facts about this artist, famed Renaissance man who painted the Mona Lisa and awed the world with sketches of flying machines. But chances are, there are few little known facts about Leonardo da Vinci's life that may surprise you. When Da Vinci died in 1519, he left behind more than 6,000 journal pages filled with his personal musings, grocery list, and even yung mga sinulat niyang jokes. Okay? He also detailed his sources of inspiration, kung saan nanggagaling ang kanyang mga inspiration sa kanyang mga interest, and his desire for lasting fame, and his deeply felt heartaches. Leonardo was an illegitimate child. Fortunately, he was an illegitimate child. Bakit ito parang magandang bagay? Why is this a good thing? Because being an illegitimate before means he was not expected to follow his father's profession and become notary. Instead, he was free to pursue his own interest and go into creative arts or pursue creative arts. And based on his journal, it is evident that he had a distant relationship with his mom, Katerina, whom we've mentioned in our previous discussion, kung natatandaan nyo pa. Some scholars theorize na si Katerina daw yung subject, di ba, behind the Mona Lisa. Also, at that time, he received little formal education. Leonardo was largely self-educated and received no formal education beyond basic reading, writing, and also mathematics. So, lahat yun basic lang and self-learned ni Leonardo da Vinci. I think this is because he was an illegitimate child nga, so walang masyadong opportunity din or privilege for him. But it didn't stop him. His artistic talents were evident from an early age, and at the age of 14, he began an apprenticeship with the noted sculptor and painter Andrea del Verrocchio of Florence. So indeed, he was very, very skilled and talented talaga as an artist. And in fact, from being a famous painter and sculptor, he was also an accomplished musician. He had a gift for music. According to his own writings, he believed music to be closely related to the visual arts, as it was similarly dependent upon one of the five senses. Tama nga naman. We use our five senses in making visual arts and as well as music. And according to Gregorio Vasari, a contemporary of Leonardo's, he sang divinely without any preparation. Sana lahat gifted. He also played lyre and flute, often performing at gatherings of nobility and at the houses of his patrons. His surviving manuscripts contain some of his original musical composition, and he invented an organ, viola, harpsichord instrument that only came into being in 2013. So, na-invento lang tong instrument na to in 2013. Pero, sa time ni Leonardo da Vinci, meron na siya nito. Nagawa niya na ito. Ito yung literal na advance mag-isip. So, yan. As an artist, may mga hurdles din or challenges din, syempreng hinarap at pinagdaanan si Da Vinci. At isa dito, yung nung nasira yung biggest project niya. Leonardo spent nearly 17 years planning the statue, yung kanyang tinuturing na biggest project. But before it was even completed, French forces invaded Milan in 1499, and the clay sculpture was practiced by victorious French soldiers, shattering it to pieces. So, imagine kung ano yung mafe-feel nyo kung kayo yung nasa lugar ni Leonardo da Vinci, na 17 years yung plinano yung project na yun, and then pag papraktisan lang ng mga French soldiers at isa-shatter ito into little pieces. Okay? And another fact, compared to Van Gogh, na very masipag, na very focused sa kanyang creative art, si Da Vinci naman medyo kaparehas natin, sa part ng pagiging procrastinator. Si Leonardo was not a prolific painter because siguro of his abundance of diverse interests. 'Di ba? Ang dami niyang ganap sa buhay, ang dami niyang gustong gawin. And he would often fail to complete his paintings and projects. And instead, he would spend his time immersed in nature, conducting scientific experiments by dissecting human and animal bodies, and filling his notebooks with inventions, observations, and theories. Okay, so very interesting ang personality ni Leonardo da Vinci. Kasi ang dami niya talagang interest sa buhay. Hindi lang siya, hindi niya sinarado yung sarili niya sa art lang. Bagkus, naging curious siya sa madaming bagay. Okay? So, that is again, Leonardo da Vinci. Okay? So, next artist is Michelangelo. So, Michelangelo was born on May 6, 1475 in Italy. So, Italy pa din, yung mga artist natin na kilala, na sumikat ngayong generation natin, pero yung mga artist, yung mga pioneer artist, and mostly sa kanila ay galing sa Italy. So, si Michelangelo Buonarroti is one of the greatest artists of all time. As we have mentioned before, during his successful career, he sculpted the Pieta in Rome and David in Florence. Also, he painted the Sistine Chapel's ceilings, diba? Yung sinabi natin last meeting, and even designed the dome for St. Peter's Basilica, to name just a few of his project or artworks. Okay? Si Michelangelo, he was a painter, architect, and poet. Yes, you heard it right. He was also a world-renowned poet. We've all seen his painting and sculpting, but one of the lesser-known facts about Michelangelo was that he was a prolific writer as well. He wrote hundreds of letters and poems, more than 300 of which still exist today. Pwede nyong i-search kay Google. And the poetry is pretty suggestive, discussing love, lust, and ecstasy, as well as spirituality, loyalty, and the human soul. But on the other hand, may bad qualities din si Michelangelo as an artist. He was a forger. Okay? He wasn't a habitual counterfeiter, but he probably got his start in 1496 from copying an ancient Roman sculpture called Sleeping Cupid and passing it off as an original. And after completing the reproduction, he buried the statue underground, then dug it up to give it a worn, scratch look. Okay? So, medyo may pagka-madaya or may pagka-madugas itong si Michelangelo. And whether from the suggestion of his patron, Lorenzo di Medici, of his own accord, he ended up selling the piece to Cardinal Riario for a large sum. So, kahit na hindi original yung idea ni Michelangelo, nabenta niya pa din at may bumili nung piece niya sa malaking halaga. Though shocking for us today, in the past, art, forgery, or embellishment wasn't quite as frowned upon. It meant that the artist was so good, he could copy the great ones, the work of the great ones. And the sly act ultimately helped the young Michelangelo launch his career. Okay, so, but dito sa panahon natin, sa generation natin ngayon, hindi na natin hinahayaan, yung mga taong umaangkin ng gawa ng iba, na nagsasabi na na-attain niya itong mga bagay na to, though hindi naman totoo. So, hindi dapat natin tinatangkilik yung mga taong ganyan. This belief was before that yung forgery at panloloko ng mga tao ay katanggap-tanggap. That was before. It belonged in the past. But now, alamin natin kung sino, kung totoo ba yung mga pinapalabas ng mga tao na facts about them, yung mga sinasabi nilang credentials nila at mga nagawa. Let's double check. Let's double check yung mga pinagsasabi ng mga taong yan. I'm talking about our politicians, sa mga tumatakbo ngayong election. Okay? So, but anyways, last meeting, we have seen the Sistine Chapel, diba, as the work of Michelangelo. But did you know that he wasn't originally chosen to complete the Sistine Chapel? At the time of Michelangelo's rise, it was Raphael who was the hot painter in town. So, hindi naman talaga si Michelangelo yung sikat before. Meron tayong tinatawag na Raphael, but I guess hindi natin kilala tong taong ito kasi na-overpower siya ni Michelangelo. And it was Raphael who Pope Julius II originally chose to work on the Sistine Chapel. And here's where a bit of rivalry comes in. Michelangelo's fame was growing with his commissions, and the young artist was stealing some of Raphael's business. And out of jealousy or pride, Raphael convinced the Pope to hire Michelangelo instead, hoping to prove that the young artist was truly just a sculptor and able to paint as well as himself. Obviously, he was disappointed kasi very talented naman nga talaga itong si Michelangelo despite yung kanyang mga bad characteristics, na may pagkapalaban at pagka-competitive ito si Michelangelo in a wrong way, and may kadugasan ding taglay. But kidding aside, today, more than 25,000 people view the magnificent chapel every day, and it did some as though Michelangelo got the last laugh kay Raphael. And compared sa mga naunang artist na minention natin kanina, na-recognize yung mga gawa nila, compared doon sa mga artist na minention natin kanina, na na-recognize yung mga gawa nila nung wala na sila. Si Michelangelo, maswerte siya kasi he was the first person to have an autobiography published during his lifetime. And despite or maybe because of his interesting personality, Italians adored Michelangelo, both during his time and after. He was known as Second Divino or the Divine, and everyone wanted to know the facts of his life. Naging very interesting talaga yung buhay ni Michelangelo, hindi lang dahil sa mga gawa niya, but because of his personality, or at least a colorful recounting of them. This is likely what led Michelangelo to publish not one, but two full-length autobiographies in his lifetime. So, very famous talaga siya during his era. And well-recognized yung mga gawa niya ngayon, and even before pa, even nung time na buhay pa siya. Okay, so he was very lucky man. Okay, so what is the importance of artists? Artists are the most important members of the society, or maybe we can say one of the most important members of the society, because they help us envision our thoughts that may not be tolerated in the social and political paradigm of our society. So the positive transformative energy of artists creates hopes and triggers change in society. Artists have to be part of this course for social change. So now, let us take a look naman. Ano nga ba ang artisan? Ano ang pinagkaiba nito? Ano nga ba ang artisan? Ano ang pinagkaiba niya sa mga artist? So artisan, these are people who are skilled workers that are involved in skilled trade using their hands in making, installing, repairing, and maintaining things with the help of tools, equipment, and machinery. So, anong pagkakaiba niya sa artist? Ang artisans, manual worker who makes items with his or her hands, create things with great beauty as well as being functional. May function siya. Before Industrial Revolution, everything was basically made by artisans. Mga smiths, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, locksmiths, gunsmiths, mga weavers, carpenters, and potters. Okay? So again, here are some examples of work of artisans. Okay? So mga pottery making, mga nagwe-weaving, paghahabi, tailoring, pagtatahi, also baking, is considered as an example of artisans, and carpentry, also cobblery. Okay? So to sum up the difference between artists and artisans, The word artist and artisan are often very confusing for most people, although there is a key difference between the two words. An artist is a person, again, who performs any creative arts. This can range from painting to music. An artisan, on the other hand, is a skilled worker who make things by hand, and usually yung kanilang mga work ay may function. Ano po? Or yeah, magagamit mo talaga. Again, yung mga artist natin na minention a while ago, they create art for the sake of art itself without needing ulterior motives like earning money and the like. Some artists naman create their work of art for the satisfaction of the society in which they live in, while they produce something that has functional value, though it should not be limited to functional value alone. Most artisans have the skill of adding aesthetic value to the objects that they create. This transcends the object from a mere object of utility. And for you to fully understand the line of work of artisans, I want you to access this video. Kindly access the PDF copy of this presentation and click on the image or link that you will see on the 12 slide of or page of the said presentation. Also, kindly access the other learning materials that will cover the learning objectives for this lesson, namely the history of the emergence of artists and artisans and the practices of artists in terms of form, medium, and technique. Aside from the reflective commentators and reactors that are assigned for this week synchronous session, other students are highly encouraged to participate in the discussion during our synchronous session. Okay, so again, this is GE6 Art Appreciation. If you have question, you can find me at cmcuarto@cspc.edu.ph, or you can message our group chat, or you can DM me or send me a personal message through my messenger, Kath Cuarto. Again, thank you for listening and have a nice day.